Thanks for clicking. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this one.
The humming of the CNC machines was practically a lullaby for Darren after 15 years on the shop floor. The place ran like a mechanical symphony, precisely timed, coordinated, and slightly unpredictable. They made high-precision hydraulic housings and custom metalwork for heavy-duty equipment. Day in and day out, steel blocks were transformed into intricate, gleaming parts. Every hiss of compressed air, every whir of a spindle, had a place in the rhythm of production. Darren had started as a machine operator and slowly became the kind of guy people came to when things didn't make sense. He wasn't a manager. He didn't have a degree, a corner office, or a reserved parking spot. What he did have was deep, earned knowledge, the kind that couldn't be Googled or found in a binder. He could listen to a mill run and know if a bit was about to snap. He knew how the metal behaved on humid days, how the machines felt when they were off by a fraction. He wasn't flashy. He just knew how to keep the floor running. That all changed when corporate sent someone new to streamline operations. The new guy showed up with a fresh haircut, spotless safety goggles, and an overconfident grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. He made a lot of noise about lean principles, time studies, and throughput optimization. He'd worked in a few plants before, mostly high-speed consumer goods, and seemed to think that principles from bottling shampoo were equally applicable to machining solid steel. His first week was filled with walkthroughs, clipboard notes, and offhand comments like, "You guys sure take a lot of pauses." His second week, he gave a presentation in the break room with pie charts and a slogan, "Less idle, more output." No one asked questions. Darren just sipped his coffee and stared at the pie chart like it had personally insulted him. Then came the changes. First, it was minor, combining workstations, shifting schedules by 15 minutes, tweaking inventory pulls. Annoying but manageable. But then came the big one. A set of changes designed to eliminate non-critical downtime across the production process. One morning, Darren was called into the office. The new guy leaned across the desk and tapped a laminated sheet. "This is the new production flow for the 44Z housings," he said. "No more cooling delays between milling and assembly. We're cutting out that dead time." Darren raised an eyebrow. "That dead time is a cool-down cycle. Those parts come off the mill at over 190 degrees. If they go into the assembly jig hot, the dimensions are off." The new guy didn't even flinch. "Our models say the heat dissipation isn't enough to cause deviation outside of tolerance. Plus, if we wait, we lose 15 minutes per cycle." Darren didn't respond right away. He just stared at the sheet. Bright colors, flow arrows, lots of buzzwords. He could already picture the problems. Clamps sticking, fasteners misaligned, tolerances blown, and the rework pile growing like a weed. But he knew that tone. He'd heard it before. This was no longer a conversation. "This isn't a suggestion," the new guy added. That's when the email showed up. It went out to all leads and operators. Effective immediately, all operations are to follow the updated SOPs as provided. Deviations must be authorized through management. Any operator not adhering to the process will be subject to corrective action. These changes are critical for improving plant performance and achieving Q3 efficiency targets. Darren stared at the screen for a long time. 15 years of knowledge and nuance, reduced to a spreadsheet and a deadline. That afternoon he walked the floor, gathered his crew, and said 4 words that nobody on that team ever wanted to hear from him. "Do it by the book." There was a pause. "You serious?" one of the assemblers asked, already knowing the answer. "Yup. Every instruction. Every timestamp. Every standard. No shortcuts. No common sense. No workarounds. Just what's written." A slow grin crept across a few faces. Malicious compliance isn't loud. It doesn't scream or throw things. It's silent. Surgical. It waits for the opportunity, and when that opportunity comes, it doesn't blink. They had just been given permission to wreck everything by doing exactly what they were told. It started slow. The first shift under the new process was quiet, eerily so. No one joked around. No one improvised. No one did that little thing they always did that kept the machine from choking or a fixture from seizing. Everything was by the book. When the first set of housings came off the mill, still radiating heat, the assembler gave them exactly 45 seconds, per the SOP update, and clamped them into the jig. The sound it made wasn't catastrophic, but it wasn't good either. Chunk tick tick. The housing didn't quite seat properly because it had expanded just enough to resist alignment. But the instructions didn't say don't clamp if resistance is felt. They said clamp and fasten per diagram B. So clamp and fasten he did. By the end of that shift, 5 out of the 8 units were out of tolerance. One cracked completely when the fastener torqued against the warped body. A defect report was filed for each one, just as the policy demanded. The next shift followed the same exact instructions. The same SOP. The same tools. The same heat. By day 2, the reject bin was overflowing. Parts didn't fit. Assemblies bound up. Torque readings were off. Quality control, which had also been ordered to rely on digital verification instead of visual checks, flagged the entire batch, but only after it had passed through 3 stations and been packed for shipment. Darren didn't say a word. He just watched, documented, photographed, and most importantly, made absolutely sure every operator followed the new rules to the letter. Every single shift ended with a compliance log. Nothing was skipped. Nothing adjusted. No decisions were made beyond what the SOP spelled out. Darren made sure of that personally. By Friday, production was technically faster. They had cut down the average cycle time by about 12%, exactly what the efficiency guy had promised. But that 12% came at a price. Over 60% of the output was now unusable. Another 15% required rework. What actually made it out the door? Well, let's just say the field complaints started rolling in within a week. One operator pointed out the issue to the new guy. Seems like parts are getting warped. The new guy scowled. Then you're not clamping them properly. I'm clamping them exactly like the SOP says. He waved his hand. Then the clamps must be out of calibration. They're not. We check them weekly. Then it's your jig. Nope. Jig's fine. I ran the diagnostic myself. Want the report? There was a long pause. Then stop doing whatever it is you're doing that's breaking the process, he said finally. The operator blinked. I'm following the process. Every technician said the same thing. The welders. The inspectors. Even the forklift guy. We're just doing what we were told. We too. That's when the fun really started. A shipment of misaligned parts got returned from a very unhappy client. These were components for heavy machinery. And when a housing is even slightly off, the entire system goes down. That return kicked off an emergency quality audit. And suddenly the efficiency guy wasn't smiling as much. He called Darren into the office, eyes narrowed. We've had 3 returns in the past week. What the hell is happening? Darren pulled a folder out of his arm. These are the non-conformance reports. These are the QC failure logs. These are the work orders, clocked exactly per your new process. And these, he laid down a handful of photos, are the jigs binding up because of thermal expansion. The guy didn't look at the photos. He just tapped the desk. Why didn't anyone raise a red flag? We did. I sent an email when the change was announced. You replied with, just follow the process. So we did. The guy leaned back. Then why isn't it working? Darren let the silence hang in the air for a moment, then leaned forward. Because machines don't care about your spreadsheets. Steel doesn't shrink because you want better margins. And no matter how many acronyms you throw at it, physics wins. The guy fumed. You're being deliberately obstructive. No, Darren said calmly. We're being obedient. Which is what you wanted. Then came the 3rd week. By now, the maintenance department was flooded. Jigs were being stress warped. Alignment pins were bending. The rework station was weeks behind, and even the packaging crew was sending back crates because the parts didn't sit flat anymore. Upper management finally got involved. Not local, real upper management. They flew in 2 execs from HQ to do a floor tour. Darren and the crew knew they were coming. So, they got everything spotless. Like a showroom. They even printed out giant versions of the new SOP and posted them proudly in each station. Right next to the overflowing reject bins, the fractured components, and a couple of cracked housings staged like exhibits. When the execs asked questions, every operator gave the same answer. We're just doing what the SOP says. That phrase echoed across the plant all day. When they finally sat down for a debrief, one of the execs looked at the numbers and paled. Your efficiency gains? They don't matter if product integrity is compromised. Why didn't anyone stop this? Darren spoke up. Come. Professional. Everyone flagged the problem. We followed protocol. We raised concerns. We were told to stay in our lane and stick to the new process. So we did. To the letter. The execs looked at the new guy who was now staring a little too hard at the table in front of him. The plant was dead quiet the morning after the executive visit. No new directives. No motivational posters in the break room. No awkward clipboard patrols. Just the usual low hum of machines doing their thing, and a creeping tension you could feel in your teeth. Darren walked the floor like he always did. His boots echoed a little more than usual. His crew didn't ask questions. They knew the rhythm. They were all waiting. Mid-morning, the plant manager, the one who'd been there long before the clipboard guy ever showed up, called Darren into the upstairs office. When he got there, 2 people from HR were already seated. So was one of the visiting execs from the day before, this one a quiet woman with a silver badge and a permanent frown. Darren didn't sit. The exec spoke first. We've been reviewing the last 3 weeks of production. I'm going to ask you some very specific questions. I'd appreciate direct answers. Darren nodded once. Understood. She glanced at a report. Did your team alter any part of the new SOP directives given on March 3rd? No. Did you or anyone on your crew deviate from the published instructions regarding temperature delays, inspection intervals, or fixture holds? No. We followed the SOPs precisely. She tapped her pen on the folder. We've received documentation from several operators, timestamped machine logs, and even a few very detailed spreadsheets. I kept records, Darren said. Just in case someone asked later. There was a flicker of something, maybe respect, in the way her eyes narrowed. You reported your concerns prior to implementation? Twice in writing. Once verbally during the rollout meeting. And you were told? Just follow the process. She turned to HR. That matches what we've confirmed. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Please wait outside. He stepped into the hallway and shut the door behind him. He didn't hear what was said next, but 20 minutes later the clipboard guy was escorted out of the building. No ceremony. No goodbyes. Just a box of belongings and a fast walk to a very quiet car. The next 2 weeks were a blur of corrective actions. Management pulled the new SOPs. Old procedures were reinstated. Cooling cycles returned. Manual inspections resumed. The rejected parts were either scrapped or remachined at significant cost, and new jigs had to be fabricated to replace the ones ruined during the compliance chaos. Darren was invited to 3 separate meetings with various departments to explain, in simple terms, why hot metal can't be trusted to fit into cold fixtures. At one point, someone from engineering asked, "Why didn't you just adjust the SOP?" Darren blinked slowly. Because we were told not to. There was a long silence. Then a quiet, "Fair enough." A month later, someone from corporate sent out a plant-wide survey. You know the kind, anonymous feedback, 5-point scales, "Do you feel empowered in your role?" type questions. Darren filled it out. Honestly. Brutally. Apparently so did a lot of others. Within another 2 months, the plant had a new initiative. This one actually included input from floor leads. Processes were re-evaluated with feedback loops. Cross-functional teams were formed to ensure changes were vetted by people who knew what the hell they were doing. One afternoon, Darren was pulled into the office again, this time by the plant manager. "I want to talk to you about a new role," he said. "It's not official yet, but it would be a kind of process liaison. Someone who translates between the engineers and the shop floor. You'd be working directly with planning." Darren raised an eyebrow. "You mean like, giving input before everything goes sideways?" "Exactly. And people would actually listen this time?" The manager smiled. "They've learned their lesson. The expensive way." Darren didn't agree right away. He took a few days, talked it over with the crew and weighed what it meant. Less hands-on machine time, more meetings. But maybe, it would prevent another disaster the next time someone tried to optimize steel with a flowchart. Eventually he accepted the role. On one condition. "We don't ever call it streamlining again." "Deal?" the manager said. The shop recovered. Morale bounced back. The team had weathered the storm and come out stronger, and with a legend that would be told for years. New hires would hear whispers of the SOP incident. Operators would joke about doing it by the book whenever someone made a boneheaded suggestion. And in the break room above the coffee pot, someone taped a printout of the original email that started it all. "Just follow the process." It was framed. And right below it, someone scribbled in Sharpie. "We did."
And that's how Darren and the crew turned blind obedience into poetic justice, one overheated housing at a time. But now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been told to just follow the process, even when you knew it was going to backfire? Maybe you worked somewhere that valued spreadsheets more than experience, or watched leadership learn the hard way why checkboxes don't fix broken systems. Drop your own story in the comments. Was it in manufacturing, IT, food service, retail? Let's hear the craziest malicious compliance you've ever witnessed. If you enjoyed this story and want more real-world workplace revenge, compliance, or karma tales, hit that like button and subscribe. Smash the bell so you don't miss the next one. And hey, remember, sometimes the best way to make a point is to follow the rules exactly as written.